Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Hakwadash, Barakatha. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone that rule well, and peace and salutations to Yakin out there pushing this word in truth. This is the Brother I with another video. Another article I'll be using is on thehill.com, and the title reads, Mattis vows dreamers serving in military will not be deported. Defense Secretary James Mattis said Thursday that dreamers serving in the military will not be deported, even if the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals (DACA) program expires. We would always stand by one of our people, Mattis told reporters at the Pentagon. Which is bullshit because, you know this devil doesn't consider a spick or a nigger to be one of his people. He just sees you as a warm body to fill those cannon fodder positions. Mattis said the protections apply to those who benefit from the program, who are on active duty in the active reserves, have already signed a contract with the military, and are waiting to go to boot camp, and veterans who left with an honorable discharge. They will not be subject to any kind of deportation, he said. There are two exceptions to the program, Mattis noted. If someone has committed a serious felony, or if a federal judge has signed a final deportation order, and as I'll show later, that having a serious felony, that having a serious felony is not a problem at all. That would be a judicial action that obviously we obey in the court system. We don't have veto authority over a court, Mattis said of the latter. Mattis also said he spoke with Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen earlier in the day to confirm the protections. We have been through this in great detail before, so it's really just a confirming call, he said. The Trump administration announced last year it was rescinding DACA, an Obama-era program that allows certain immigrants brought into the country illegally as children to live and work in the U.S. without fear of deportation. It also allows them to serve in the military. About 900 DACA recipients are now enrolled in the armed forces or are awaiting boot camp, according to Chief Pentagon spokeswoman Dana White. The program is set to expire March 5th and is a linchpin of ongoing immigration negotiations in Congress. And this video is mainly directed to you two-thirds Northern tribes, because I know you Northern tribes brothers in the truth wouldn't consider joining the military. But if you ever notice, whenever they always talk about stuff like this, it's always the military that's the saving grace by allowing people to keep their citizenship, which just goes to show that that's all they see as is a cannon fodder, and that they know that with World War III coming up, they're going to need as many warm bodies to fill those positions as possible, because if it starts in Iran, for instance, then it's going to lead to a war with Russia and China. And I have a book with a few excerpts to show just how insignificant you jakes are to Esau and his whole plan with everything. But first I'm going to go to Jeremiah 2:14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? And they're definitely spoiling you northern tribes by only allowing you to stay in the country if you serve in the military, which is something that a slave would go through, because in ancient times, whenever one country conquered another country, the soldiers of the defeated country would be reconstituted into the winning country's military and would be used to go into the front lines and get killed first, so they could save as much as their own manpower as possible. And now I'm going to be reading a few excerpts from a book that I'd highly recommend to you brothers, called Irregular Army: How the U.S. Military Recruited Neo-Nazis, Gang Members, and Criminals to Fight the War on Terror, by Matt Kennard. Two very fitting symbols next to each other. And where it said that the U.S. military recruited gang members and criminals, as you'll see right here, it contradicts where it says there are two exceptions to the protection Mattis noted if someone has committed a serious felony. So right there you should see that this devil Esau doesn't have the right intentions for you 2/3. And the whole basis behind this book is that during the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, since the military was a volunteer force at the time, they didn't have enough people joining, so they lowered the requirement rates, which allowed, as it said, neo-Nazis, gang members, and criminals to go fight in those wars. And they also allowed out-of-shape people and people with mental illnesses. So with this coming World War III, they're gonna reinstate the draft again. But as I said earlier, they're gonna need as many people as possible. So that's why they're allowing you DACA babies to stay if you join the military. So now I'm going to get into this book, and I'm going to skip around a little bit from paragraph to paragraph, but it'll get the point across. And I'm going to be reading on page 176, and the title of the chapter is Illegal Immigrants, Illegal Recruiters. Quietly after the defeat of the DREAM Act, something more insidious was passed in its stead, a law which gives the Pentagon power to bring immigrants into the U.S. if it is deemed, in that beautiful piece of bureaucratic ambiguity, vital to national security, World War III, for instance. Although this law hasn't been applied frequently, it has the potential to be widely used. The military had already started looking beyond the legal immigrants within its borders, casting its gaze to Mexico and the millions of desperately poor young men who dreamed of making it to the U.S. Sounds a lot like DACA. And now I'm going to jump down. Arlene Inouye, a high school teacher in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles Unified School District, said, "It's well known, common knowledge, that military recruiters do promise or offer to our undocumented students a fake green cards." A student at the same school, Salvador Garcia III, added, they offered they would bring my father back from Mexico if I served a 4-year tour in the United States military. Which brings me to Psalms 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. And where it said, they offered they would bring my father back from Mexico. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. If I served a 4-year tour in the United States military, but war was drawn in his heart. So right there, that's all you Jakes are, and that goes for you northern and southern tribes, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You're just dung to be cast on the streets for Esau. And now back to it. In 2007, civil rights activist Ildefonso Ortiz Cabrera reported that while he was in Phoenix, Arizona, Army recruiters suggested he go to a military base. He refused and instead returned to El Burrion, his town in Sinaloa, North Mexico. Not everyone was so strong-willed, but we never heard about them. They ended up in the Middle East to die for some rich bankers. And Slovakia. The attitude that this Ildefonso Ortiz Cabrera had is what you Jake should have. You should be willing to get deported back to where you originally came from instead of fighting in this devil's army. And his hometown was El Burrion in Sinaloa, North Mexico. And if any of you brothers know about the drug violence going on in Mexico and in most of Central and South America, the Sinaloa drug cartel is there's some pretty bad boys. They're just as bad as ISIS. They do the same things, like chopping off people's heads and skinning people and setting them on fire while they're alive. So this Ildefonso Ortiz Cabrera was willing to risk that over joining Esau's military. And that is the attitude of someone who is not a servant or a homeborn slave. Now back to it. The promise of citizenship was a serious incentive. For many young Latinos, this was the only shot for them and their family. In April 2008, green card holder Arturo Huerta Cruz, 23, of the 10th Mountain Division, was on patrol near Tuz in northern Iraq when he was killed by an IED. Huerta Cruz was originally from a small rural town called Hidalgo, Mexico, but moved to Florida when he was 10. His motives for fighting were accurately outlined by the Tampa Bay Times, which said his death will further opportunities for his younger cousins, including his baby Arturo, who is a U.S. citizen, adding, "The infant child will have opportunities never available to Huerta Cruz. He can vote for president. He might become president. He can work for the government, as Huerta Cruz once hoped. Or he might pass along his name to the family's growing list of natural-born U.S. citizens." The headline of the article was typical of the patriotic foreigner narrative the military and media pushed. Mexican citizen died in Iraq, serving U.S., his beloved new land, it read. I'm going to get one more scripture before I close it out. In 2 Esdras chapter 16, verse 69, "And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot." So as you can see, Arturo Huerta Cruz consented unto Esau and his military because he believed he would be able to get those white man benefits and be able to send his family on their way, and that one day maybe his child could become president of the United States. But as you can see, once he consented unto Esau, he was trodden underfoot and killed by an IED. And he was definitely had in derision and in reproach by the Most High by allowing that to happen to him. So as you can see, you Jakes out there better off just staying in your lane and staying out of the military, because it's just going to lead to your death, especially with World War III approaching. So with that, I hope you brothers and anyone else who is listening was edified. Until next time, Shalom.